Hello everybody, welcome back to another podcast. Well, Avengers Endgame is finally in theaters last weekend. Let's see how that movie did at the box office. Alright, let's jump right in. So Avengers Endgame, the fourth movie in the Avengers series, right? The previous one was Avengers Infinity War, where they have this purple villain named Thanos. Him and his gauntlet, pretty much did a number on half of the population in the entire universe. There's a couple of superheroes who died as well, right? And then there's the surviving members in this movie in Endgames, band together to I guess avenge them if they couldn't bring them back, right? That they want to steal the gauntlet from Thanos, take the gauntlet from Thanos, and use his powers to bring everybody back, and that's their plan, right? But of course, he's all powerful, and and that's the movie, and all 3 hours of it. All right, so I said the movie would probably open somewhere in the 260 million-ish range, because the previous movie, Infinity War, opened to 258 million, right? And at that time was a record, I believe. And I said, I'm gonna do, conservatively 260 million. It's gonna make a bit more because there is a limit to how many seats that can be sold, right? And I was underestimating the capacity, right? So before I get to that, let's talk some numbers, right? So the movie pulled in 350 million. That's just the estimate. The actual numbers haven't come in yet. I mean, the actual numbers could actually be higher, than the 350 million estimated for the 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, including the Thursday previews. So 350 million for an opening movie, for 3 days. That is actually a record, right? And it is, the only thing you can say about Endgame is that it's record breaking. And let me take off the records that was broken by Endgame, right? It's the it has the widest opening, over 400,662 theaters. That's at that time, the biggest there is, right? And then there is the largest Thursday preview, Thursday numbers, 60 million. That's the largest. The previous record was held by The Force Awakens with 57 million. And then largest Friday single day, right? 156.7 million. That's for Friday. That's a record. The previous was held by, again, Star Wars The Force Awakens at 119.1 million. So the list goes on and on. So it has the largest Friday, the largest Saturday, the largest Sunday, and the fastest to 1 billion, etc., etc. So numerous records were being broken by Avengers Endgame. And where the numbers will end up, we don't know, because right now, after 5 days, I believe Endgame was released overseas a couple of days ago before it was released in the US, and overseas has already grossed 866.5 million for a worldwide total of 1.2 billion. So only after a couple of days it has already ended up with 1.2 billion worldwide. So that we don't know, due to repeated viewing. This is an event film, right? We don't know, everybody's gonna want to watch it. It's gonna be the water cooler movie, because it's the culmination of all these various storylines. It's all connected right here. And of course, reviews wise, 96% on the tomato meter, A+ cinema score, so that's as good as you can get on the with the cinema score. And 96% is actually quite high, as well for a superhero movie. So there you go. I mean, just by the word of mouth itself, the huge opening figures, there's a great momentum going for this movie. And 1.2 billion is just the beginning. It's only after a week, a couple days here. There's still many weeks to go, so we don't know where domestically this movie will end up. So if there's one word to describe Avengers Endgame, is record breaking. So moving along to number 2 is Captain Marvel, which surprisingly only dropped 11.6% from its previous weekend to pull in about 8 million in its 8th weekend for a domestic gross of 413 million. And worldwide it is at 1.1 billion with 696 million of that from overseas. So you can see that it is actually Captain Marvel is actually getting a bump from Avengers Endgame that people might want to check out. Captain Marvel, maybe because they couldn't get tickets to Endgame, or maybe they just want to catch some of Captain Marvel's backstory once they saw Endgame. So that it got a little synergy there, halo effect from Endgame. Captain Marvel did. Okay, and number 3 is the horror film The Curse of La Llorona. It pulled in 7.5 million in its second weekend, huge drop off, 71%. Domestic gross is about 41 million, and worldwide it is at 86.7 million. So huge drop off. But that's to be expected because Endgame, like I say, with that huge of a movie, you can expect all the rest of the movie, with the exception of Captain Marvel, to experience huge drop off. You can suck the oxygen out of the rest of the movies in theaters. The good thing for La Llorona is that it only cost 9 million to make. All right, number 4 is Breakthrough, the faith-based film. It's based on a true story. It pulled in 6.3 million in its second weekend. Drop off is about 44%. You can see that there is some counter programming there, so I'm not sure if the audience overlap or not. Probably don't. So after 2 weekend, domestic gross is 26 million, and worldwide it is at 34 million, with 8 million of that from overseas. Okay, moving along, number 5 is Shazam. Pulled in 5.5 million in its 4th weekend. Drop off is about 67% from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is 131 million. And worldwide it is at 345 million, with 214 million of that from overseas. So yeah, this movie is doing better than I expected. I mean, from the trailer you can see that this is a less serious take on the superhero genre, and it's kind of goofy as well, and somehow this one hit it off with the audience. So as you can see from the promos, this Shazam is actually a more comical take on the superhero genre. It's not as serious as the some of the other superhero movies from Warner Brothers, like the Justice League, the Batman movies, right? And it seems to find an audience for them. So it's something they could build upon, and they don't have to be all such a grime, gritty downer of the the mainline ones, right? And reviews wise, actually pretty good, I believe. Yeah, 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, moving along is number 6, Little. All right, moving along to number 6 is Little. It is the body switching comedy starring Regina Hall, Issa Rae, and Marsai Martin. About a woman who is cursed to live her life again. I don't know, to live her life as a teenager, right? She turned into a teenager by a curse, and Ray, as her long-suffering assistant, has to play this mother figure to her. And Martin, is getting good reviews for her portrayal as the younger Regina Hall character. So it's doing actually quite well at the box office. In its 3rd weekend, it pulled in 3.4 million for a domestic total of 36 million, and the budget is only 20 million. And it hasn't opened that wide overseas yet, only 6 million from there for a worldwide total of about 42 million. Okay, number 7 is Dumbo. It pulled in 3.2 million in its 5th weekend. Drop off is about 51% from the previous weekend. Domestic gross is 100 million. No, domestic gross is 107 million, so it cracked the 100 million barrier. Yeah, there was some doubt about it doing that, but it was able to do that. Worldwide, it pulled in 328 million, with 221 million of that from overseas. So it's doing better overseas than domestic. Right, number 8 is the horror movie Pet Sematary. It's based on a Stephen King novel. It pulled in 1.3 million in its 4th weekend. Drop off is about 74% from the previous weekend. It lost some theaters as well. Domestic gross so far is 52 million. And let's see, worldwide it is at 102 million with about 50 million of that from overseas. Number 9 is the horror movie Us, the latest horror movie from director Jordan Peele. It pulled in 1.1 million in the 6th weekend. Drop-off is about 73% as well. And domestic gross, it is at 172 million, and worldwide 249 million, with 76 million of that from overseas. Okay, closing out the top 10 is the Disney documentary Penguins. A movie about penguins. Follow a penguin they name Steve as it goes through its life cycle, as I guess its final mate, birth of its son, etc. Pulled in about 1 million in the second weekend. Drop off is about 50%. And domestic gross is about 5 million. It's one of the lower grossing Disney nature brand documentary there is. Okay, so that's it for the top 10. Let's move on to the new releases. We're going to have 3 wide ones. We're going to have The Intruder, and that's a thriller, and Long Shot, a romantic comedy with Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron. And then finally Uglydolls, an animation that's based on these plush toys. Alright, let's start off with The Intruder. This movie stars Michael Ealy, Megan Good, and Dennis Quaid. Ealy and Good stars as a couple who bought a house from Quaid, but Quaid has attachment issues to the house, right? he acts like, even though he sold the house, he acts like he still owns it, and he's stalking the couple, especially Megan Good's character, right? So this is a sort of a horror movie there, thriller. It plays on some racial tension there, right? Ealy and Good or black couple, right? Quaid is white, and there is some of that. So far, there are no reviews yet, but from these movies, you've seen these movies, erotic thrillers sort of with Ealy, Megan Good as well. That's targeted toward these movies are targeted toward the African American audience, and they typically used to find an audience. But recently, I've seen that these movies have been taking a dip. Normally, they have opened well, right, up in the 15 to 20 million range. But some of the recent couple ones have been doing poorly, and it could be that people are getting tired of these movies. They're seeing the same things over and over. So I think with the competition of Endgame endures as well, I don't think it's gonna find that big of an audience for it. So I think for its opening weekend, it's probably gonna open somewhere between in the 5 to 10 million range. Alright, next up is Long Shot. It's sort of a rom-com starring Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron. Theron stars as the Secretary of State who's making a run for the presidency, right? And Seth Rogen plays a character who, Theron's character used to babysit. And she needs a speechwriter, and he happens to be a journalist, and they kind of hit it off. And there's this dynamic of like the Beauty and the Beast right there. Charlize Theron is this very elegant person, high status, right? Rogen has this long beard, kind of hippie like character, right? And obviously this is not good. The romance is not good, image wise, optics, for her run. So there's that. Given that, this is counter programming, for the adult crowd who might not be interested in the, Endgame or the other movies. So I think this probably could pull in somewhere, or open to somewhere in the 8 to 10 million range as well. Alright, finally we have Uglydolls. So it's an animation based on the plush dolls. I'm not familiar with how popular these dolls are. They are certainly in stores. It features the voices of Kelly Clarkson, Nick Jonas, Janelle Monáe, Blake Shelton, and Pitbull. I believe those are musicians of some sort, those names. But I don't see an audience for this, I guess. I don't think this is going to be a huge children family movie. Again, I could be wrong. I don't know how popular these dolls are. But just going by feeling from the promos, trailers, etc. I think this is something that belongs on TV. And of course, there's again Endgame in theaters, so people might choose to watch that instead. So I think this one for Uglydolls is probably going to open, with about 5 million this weekend. All right, so that's it for this podcast. Tune in next week to see how it did. Until then, take care. Bye bye.